Yes, I do have some advice for looking for a church. So when you're selecting a church, I would say, okay, first thing is get their doctrinal statement. I mean, this is fascinating. This is a fascinating exercise all on its own. You visit a new church. I think the first thing you should ask for is their doctrinal statement. Some of them many of them will go, "What's that? Huh? Doctrinal statement? What's that?" I mean, we did this. We do this at every church we visit. Is we ask for the doctrinal statement. What do you believe? And it's amazing the responses you get. Uh, I had there was one I asked, and I just let her sort of hang there for like.
Which church it is?
Okay, it was Willow Creek. It was Willow Creek. We visited Willow Creek, the big mega church in Illinois. Okay, I went there, and they had a visitor center, and so okay. I mean, that was a weird church anyway. It looked like you were walking through an airport. But I visited the visitor center, and I asked for the doctrinal statement. She goes, "Doctrinal statement? Doctrinal statement." She thinks and thinks and thinks, and like 20 seconds go by. I mean, she waits. She waits for a long time, and she goes, "Oh, what we believe." Okay. Okay, so get their doctrinal statement. Find out what they believe. It's fascinating, especially once you have like been to like several churches and you start looking at them side by side. You get very, very yeah, exegetical apologetics doctrinal statement. What's that? Bye. Yeah. Wow. But you get them and you start looking at them side by side, and you see some very, very interesting things in doctrinal statements. Really interesting. You'll see there'll be like the essentials. Always look for the essentials. You know, like the Trinity is an essential. Salvation by grace through faith is an essential. The virgin birth is an essential. The crucifixion and resurrection of Jesus Christ is an essential. Second coming of Jesus is an essential. You know, there are essentials of the Christian faith that any good church has to have. Okay? Then, once a church gets past, say, a good analysis of the essentials, then you can look at their secondary doctrines. And then at that point, you have to ask, is this a good fit for me? Can I live with the secondary issues, the secondary beliefs? Now, it's going to come down to this, really. There's no perfect church. If you're well studied in the Bible, there's going to be something you disagree with in any church. Every church is going to have something you disagree with if you are a student of the Bible. Okay? If it's going to come down to, though, is this a place where you can have good community? Is the secondary issues going to be something you can live with? Is it someplace you can serve? That's a huge one. It's one that a lot of people go to churches thinking, what am I going to get out of this? It's the wrong question. It's the wrong question. The right question is, how can I serve in this church? Because if you serve in the church, you're vested in the church. And you're a part of it. You're part of the body of believers. This is probably the second most, the other three questions. Does it have the essentials of the Christian faith? Can I live with the secondary belief systems? And then can I serve? If you're in a church that can't serve, you can't function with your spiritual gifts. You know, there's an estimate based on spiritual gift surveys that 80% of people in churches do not use their spiritual gifts for the kingdom. Now, I asked a doctor this, a physician, and I said, what would happen if 80% of the cells in your body stopped working? And he said, well, you'd have you'd have organ failure. The whole body would die. Kind of like what were the churches today. We are living in a time where 80% of Christians, of members of the body of Christ, aren't using their spiritual gifts for the body of Christ. So the hand's not acting like the hand. The spleen's not acting like the spleen. The heart's not acting like the heart. The lungs are not acting like lungs. Everything has stopped working. This is one of the reasons why a church is in such crisis today. Is because the body of Christ is not serving the body of Christ. It's serving itself. Every cell is serving itself. And this is called cancer. It's not the body of Christ. Cancer consumes. It gives nothing back. So, as I said, the third and really important question is, how can I serve this church? If there's no way for you to serve the church, and some churches are organized that you can't serve in them, find another church. Because you won't be part of the church. You'll be cancer there. You need to be part of a church where you can be part of the body of Christ. As it says in Ephesians, the mysterion. The mystery of many parts but one body. So those are my tips for choosing a church. Look at the doctrinal statements. Make sure the essentials check out. Look at the secondary issues. Can you live with those additional doctrinal beliefs? You don't have to agree with them all, but you have to be able to live with them. And third, can you serve? If you can, if everything passes those tests, then you've got a church that is probably a good church, one that you can actually thrive and spiritually grow in. Keeps learning. Can women serve in leadership? It depends. It'll depend on the church. Some churches allow women in leadership, some don't. Again, is this a secondary issue you can live with? Do I think women can serve in leadership? Absolutely. I think women can serve in leadership. I have no problem with women serving in leadership. But again, that's going to depend upon which church you're talking about. There are some that are very strict about this. Am I comfortable in those churches? No, I'm not comfortable in those churches. Okay? But I'm also not going to denigrate those churches too for that. They have their reasons and they have their particular scriptural understanding of that. And I'm not going to get on my high horse here and, make a moralistic rules as saying, a church must always include women in leadership. Again, I'm understanding to the fact that all churches' traditions are not the same. But at that same point, too, I personally think that it's acceptable for women to be in leadership.